So I don't know if you heard the news, but Joe Rogan just got a $100 million deal from Spotify, according to Wall Street Journal, to move his entire podcast and YouTube exclusively by the end of the year on Spotify. That means no YouTube, so Google loses, and no iTunes, which means Apple loses. And there's no other place you can get his content except for Spotify. And Spotify's even making a video component. They don't have it right now, but they're doing it specifically for Joe Rogan, apparently. So who won here? Who made the money here? And by the way, when I give you some of the math on the money Spotify spent to get Joe Rogan to go there, you will be surprised on how much money Spotify made in the last 2 days. You will be shell-shocked when I share with you on how much money was made. Now, let's take a look at this. What does this mean to the marketplace? A couple things. Number one, if you guys remember Donald Sterling, a name you haven't heard for a while because Steve Ballmer bought the Clippers from Donald Sterling for $2.2 billion. Now, here's a story. Donald Sterling bought the San Diego Clippers years ago before they were the LA Clippers. He bought the San Diego Clippers. You know for how much? You ready? Did he buy for $300 million? Maybe $100 million, right? $50 million. How about $16 million? How about $12.5 million? Donald Sterling paid $12.5 million for the San Diego Clippers. He sold it to Ballmer for $2.2 billion, from $12.5 to $2.2 billion. Why does this matter to you? The day that, what's the name of the guy that bought the team? The day Ballmer bought the team for $2.2 billion, you know what happened that day? The following day, they said Michael Jordan's a billionaire. Why? Because every team's valuation went up. So what does this mean? What does Donald Sterling and Ballmer and Clippers have to do with Joe Rogan? Everything. It's like living on a lot. You bought a house for $500,000, 4,000 square feet. 2 years later, the house next door, same exact size as yours, sold for $1 million. You just made $500,000. Joe Rogan officially showed the value of content creators worldwide. That means Spotify is willing to pay a guy like him. Now, we got to know that Joe Rogan's the number one podcast, 150 million downloads per month, 1,500 podcasts. That's all going to be transferred over to Spotify. This guy pulls from UFC. This guy pulls from a marijuana side. This guy pulls from, Hollywood actors, comedians, workout. He's a great fighter himself. He's got a lot of draw of different places that he pulls people from. But still, he got paid $100 million. Now, was that a wise investment on Spotify's side? Now, as far as Rogan goes, he had to make his decision based on what he did. But on Spotify's side, let me show you some numbers here. Let's look at market cap. So check this out. This was announced yesterday. Yesterday, if you come closer, Mario, Spotify stock was $161.43. If you look right here, okay? Today, the stock is what? $189.80. Okay, so look at this increase from May 19th to May 20th, how much it's gone up, right? From 161 to 189. Let me do some math for you. They announced Rogan is leaving Google and leaving YouTube and leaving iTunes to go to Spotify, right? Oh my gosh, Joe Rogan's leaving. He said it himself. He's not an employee, but he's just going over. He's going to do the same thing. He's got control of his creativity. So Spotify cannot tell him what to talk about and what not to talk about, because that's a challenge right now on YouTube. Here's the math. Mario, come around. Let me show the math for you. The stock yesterday, the 19th, was $161.43. Today, $189.80, okay? It's a plus of $28.37. Divided by 161.43, they made 17.57% in 48 hours. And this is what it looks like. Spotify on 5/18 was worth $30.53 billion. Today, Spotify is worth $35.29 billion. They gave $100 million contract to Rogan. They made $5 billion in 48 hours. Nothing for Spotify. Spotify, good for you to show the marketplace the value of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is worth essentially $5 billion. That's what Joe is worth to Spotify. Because all of those viewers that were going and watching his podcast every day, now they have to go. Still going to be free on Spotify. Now they have to go to Spotify. But what Spotify did is the following. Anytime you go to war, let's just say you go and fight a gang, right? And you don't just go fight, the average guy's going to just fight the regular guys at the bottom. But you go to the main guy and you fight him. You knock the leader out of a gang, you automatically gain the respect of who? Everybody, right? Spotify didn't go after the number 10 podcaster. They didn't go after the number 5 podcaster. They told YouTube, we're going to take your best player away from you. His name is Joe Rogan. And he's going to come to us. And you know what's going to happen? The eyeballs of everybody else open. So guess what? Your content creators, YouTube, are not happy with you. Capitalism is going to do its part. This is why I trust capitalism. So now, content creators are very happy. Oh my gosh, did you see what happened? Did you see what took place? That means maybe I'm worth more money. That means maybe yes, all of that stuff is true if you're a talent wanting to create content and that's the direction you're going to be going to, right? Now, Spotify is going to make a decision who they're going to be picking up, but a couple things I want you to be thinking about behind closed doors. This is one of the things I'm thinking about. So I'm a guy that likes to go and analyze things, right? So watch this. Joe has an agent. He's got a manager that negotiates on his behalf. Now, according to some of the numbers, he's already making $30 million a year. Some say he's making 50 grand an episode he does. Some episodes he makes 150 grand, like Elon Musk maybe makes him 200, 300 grand that he does. Regardless of what it is, he made 30 million last year. So if they say they sign a $100 million deal, I would hope it's only a 2 or 3 year deal, but maybe it's a 4-year deal. Let's just say that's what the case is. The question we got to ask is the following. Did Joe Rogan's manager go to YouTube and tell YouTube, Joe's about to sign a deal with Spotify. Do you want to match it to keep him, Apple or iTunes or Google? Do you want to keep him, or are you okay losing him? Now, I'm not there to speculate and say what was said. I don't have the data. I don't have the entry. I don't have the script to tell you this is what was said. I have the emails. Not at all. But let's just say that's what happened. And Joe's a pretty astute guy. He's a pretty intuitive guy. He's a pretty smart guy. He's going to tell his manager, hey, go ask YouTube if they're willing to match. Imagine if they did, and YouTube said, no, we're not willing to give Joe $200 million to match the deal, or maybe $300 million. He's not worth that kind of money. Are you kidding me? Joe worth $200 million? No, they're just trying to bluff us. They're trying to play the game. While Spotify made $5 billion. So Spotify, I've never done anything with Spotify, ever. I've never listened to anything on Spotify. I'm telling you, fully never. Then the next question becomes, how many people will convert and go follow Joe's content on Spotify? Here's the reality of it. 2 ways to look at that. Number one, the true believers of Joe, 100% is going to Spotify. No question. 100% is going to Spotify. Oh my gosh, I got lost and found this video of Joe Rogan, but I'm not a subscriber. What a cool video. I get stuck for 2 hours and 28 minutes. Maybe not, but the true believers will go. Now, Spotify's not dumb. They know exactly what they're doing. Spotify is probably going to spend so much money advertising Joe's short clips on Facebook and YouTube and Google to drive them to Spotify, because Spotify is going to spend the money. That's what's going to be taking place. But I have a feeling his followers are going to go there, no problem. And he'll probably end up creating new followers. But this is the direction things are going right now. So it's pretty interesting to see what's going to be taking place in a marketplace, because the price has been set. The market value for a content creator like Joe is $100 million. But I want to make a prediction to you right now. I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, somebody who's a podcaster, somebody who's a content creator is going to sign a $1 billion contract. Let me say this to you one more time. I predict in the next 5 to 10 years, someone's going to sign a $1 billion contract. $1 billion contract. You know why? Because hopefully YouTube, Google, some of the executives, Spotify's are going to see this and they're going to say, wait a minute. You mean to tell me I give you $100 and I make $5,000 in 48 hours? I'll bet that. Even roulette is $100 for $3,600. I've never heard anything I pay $100, I make $5,000. 50x in 40 hours? Spotify says yes. 50x. 48 hours. Time to play ball. The market's been set. Everyone knows what is the value of those creating content. And this pandemic that took place made Spotify $5 billion in 48 hours. And in a way, if they made $5 billion, that means somebody lost $5 billion. Whether that's Google, whether that's Apple, whether that's iTunes, YouTube, somebody lost $5 billion because that market went to another place. So something to think about. By the way, if Joe is watching this and one of Joe's friends sends this over to him, Joe, you mentioned a couple weeks ago you're thinking about Texas and Austin, and guy sent me a message and I posted a tweet about your video you may want to make that move sooner. Because on $100 million, living in the state of California, that's $13.3 million. Just by you moving to the state of Florida, Tennessee, Nevada, or Texas, you'll buy a $13.3 million house on the state. Let me say that one more time. Come to Texas, Austin, Dallas, maybe not Houston, but Austin, Dallas. Go to Fort Lauderdale, go to Boca, go to any of these places. Look for a $13.3 million house because the state will give it to you for free just for leaving the state of California. That's my take on Joe Rogan's $100 million deal with Spotify. Joe, congratulations to you. I salute you. And Spotify, congratulations to you for landing an absolute stud of a guy.